e lancio subito la presentazione successiva, che sarà fatta anche questa in inglese, a cura di Philippe DAWSON, che chiamo qua, VP Analyst di Gartner, che ci farà vedere la visione di Gartner sul futuro dell'IT e quello che loro definiscono il bimodal IT. Phil? Thank you, Phil.
Am I on? Yeah. We had German English, which is always interesting. And now we got Yorkshire English, Northern English. I'm not BBC, so you'll take me from there. We've got no signal, so we got. Can we have? Is the floor monitor on? We got floor mon? No. Okay. I'm not getting any picture in front of me. I'll have to look at the big screen occasionally. My name's Phil Dawson. I've been with Gartner now. It's getting embarrassing. About 17 years, and it's interesting because we're talking about bimodal IT. The two previous presentations, it's good to see some Gartner content in there. And what's interesting is I don't think we're adding a lot here, but there's one thing I want to really plow into to take it further. I thought the innovation gap slide was very interesting. The only thing I would add to that innovation slide, which is really, really important, is that IT isn't necessarily going to fill the gap with its own money, because your IT budget is going to be restricted, fairly low growth, if at all any growth. So you fill that budget by leveraging OT, operational technology budget. So that innovation gap, that becoming efficient of IT infrastructure versus doing new things efficiently, you have to leverage the business unit's budget. And here's the bottom line, and we don't have to do the presentation, we can all go to have some vino and have some fun now. The bottom line is dead simple. If you don't fill that budget with OT, then the IT jobs in your organization will go to the cloud or external to you. Okay? So you've got to leverage the operational budget and the business units to fill that gap. Really important point. Right, let's crack on with the presentation. Strategic planning. 75% of organizations will have a bimodal capability. 50% will make a mess of it, especially if you sit underneath the birds. Because if you sit there, you'll be messed up. 75% will have to be bimodal. They will have a gap that they have to fill. Really big percentage. What's also interesting, that 40%, 43% of leverage business from digitalization, here's another thing. What does it do to things like licensing and software? Because now the endpoint isn't the mobile, isn't the user, it's a device and an Internet of Things that are not tied to the person. They may be tied to a building, to a pallet, to a truck. So you're actually designing a small digital application for a device. So your endpoints are devices, not necessarily people. Really important point as well. Bimodal means two modes of IT designed to address different information. Whenever we go to different cities and we always put either Italian pictures for Italy, so I know that's the Duomo in Florence, been there many times. I'm not saying it's my favorite city, but culturally it's a fantastic city. And exploration. Now, which one do you want to do? Traditional IT. If I'm in Holland, where they drink a lot of milk, I say traditional is cleaning up spilt milk, and exploratory is don't spill any more milk. Okay? What's important about that statement is don't just clean up your mess, do new things as well, but don't make a mess as you do them. Okay? So you've got to do these new things. Do you do them new with new infrastructure, new software to those new devices, new users, or the same stuff as before? That same stuff as before probably won't adapt sufficiently. Now, that doesn't mean you totally go mode 2, Because if you go totally mode 2, your mode 1 will suffer. So you do need two speeds of IT. You do need that two approaches, but you do have to share and reuse between them. And you know what's really important? I have a big argument with my boss. So sometimes he wins because he's my boss, right? And I say, the problem with mode 2 is next year's mode 2 makes this year's mode 2 more like mode 1. Because you're doing something new, and next year you'll do something new again. So you have to standardize, modernize, and make them repeatable. Otherwise, you cannot make them sediment into mode 1 and reuse mode 1. So do new things, but protect the old as well. I&O leaders, I actually run the agenda for I&O leaders, which is the role of projects and leaders inside IT. Okay? You care about bimodal because you cannot confront the present digital business with a single mode of IT. It cannot be overinflated mode 1 to become mode 2. It cannot be a re-veneered mode 2, mode 1 to mode 2. What's also interesting is, look at someone like Red Hat's growth. Was it 54 quarters, 13 years, you said. I bet IBM wish they could do that with AIX. They can't. Now, most of that mode 1 Unix to Linux migration has happened. The 6 billion down to 2 billion, down to 500 million kind of Unix revenues, that's happened. So someone like a Red Hat can't grow just off Unix migrations. That's very mode 1. And it's happened. You can't just do Oracle and SAP or other workloads. But you have to do these new workloads. You have to do the new development. Now, you can't just virtualize everything with VMs or VMware. And sometimes I see clients who have VMs who say, let's put Linux guests in as a VM. And it's one OS, one workload. That was great for Windows when Windows was inefficient. But Linux is like Unix and is efficient. And you can migrate multiple workloads onto containers, onto the Linux kernel. So not only are you getting new apps and new applets for the containers, but you're getting new consolidation styles for mode 1 and mode 2. Think about forward consolidation as well as backwards consolidation. Forward consolidation is don't spill any more milk, keep things standardized. So our generation's mainframe, how many people have here switched off their mainframe recently? Italy's quite interesting because you've still got a lot of mainframes out there. You don't have as many, I don't think, still in the mini computer phase and the client server phase taken off. Into the mobile and cloud, remember the device thing? You've still got your device. Well, my watch is just a traditional watch. I'm not into these Apple watches and things like that. But I like to tell the time on my watch, not speak to my wife, to be honest with you. No disrespect to my wife. She's lovely. I've got to laugh. But your user at mobile is still me. The user of tomorrow might be these poofs or whatever. I was supposed to sit on these in 10 minutes or something like that. But the future of the user and the device, this will have an IP address. This will have an IP address. Everything. Internet of Things. Your shoes will tell you when they need resoling, rehealing. All of that kind of stuff. Really interesting. So the number of users, the number of locations is really exponential. So what do we need to do? You have to focus on craftsmanship around technology, process, into business models. Don't just focus on IT. Don't just focus on DevOps. Because this is ITIL processes, this is DevOps, and this is really going to digitalization of the business. Now, that 20 to 43% doubling, it's taking 15 years or so to get to that 20%, and it's going to double within less than 5. That's actually going to be even more. If you look at cloud, we think about today, 20% of all IT is now fulfilled by the cloud. Within 2 years, it's going to be 40%. So that industrialization may be internal and external services. Looking at the capability, systems management has moved into leadership and measurement, not just service management. So you've got to beyond service-driven infrastructure. Software-defined has to be top-down. Data center, software-defined infrastructure down to the storage and the networks. If you're building a software-defined storage pool, a software-defined network pool coming up, then you're building islands, and islands will lead to more silos. Not a good thing to do. So digitalization is where we're taking it, and it's really moving the business model of IT, and IT is working with OT as well as being part of the business. So you're integrating with the operational technology. Let me give an example. Virtualization, about 80% of workloads are in VMs now. 80%. And it's only going to grow to about a maximum of 90%. That's interesting. 10% are going to be on physical. So you still have to do bare metal management. What's also interesting, out of that 90%, a third of them are on servers that are 3 to 5 year old. So you've got to re-virtualize. Do you re-virtualize the same way you virtualized before? Or do you consider alternate technologies, alternate hypervisors? Do you check containers? Look at containerizing the infrastructure. Not all eggs are golden eggs. Don't treat the eggs in the basket all as golden eggs. Brown and white eggs don't have the same service levels as golden eggs. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. So, IT industrialization, marathon runner, operationally effective. IT management processes, very ITIL processed, not DevOps. DevOps is very much mode 2. Mode 1 is about doing things efficiently, doing things better, doing things for service levels. Doing that and externalizing it, you know, let's clean up the spilt milk, and then can you buy milk cheaper? If you can buy it cheaper from outside, then why not? Okay? It's still milk. Services and solutions, efficiency and effectiveness, cost consolidation. About 50–60% of all VMs are saving you money, but about 20 to 30% will actually cost you money to improve the SLA. So don't treat them all the same. Industrialization requires into sprinters and develops into sprinters for mode 2. Here we got digital leadership with new business models where you're treating everybody as a partner to the endpoint. So even if you've got a user of a device, those devices are the communication to the user, to the endpoint. And you may have multiple connections, multiple routes to those users. The customer, who is the customer? Is it the device owner, the device renter, or? And there was a very interesting word you said, and I'm sorry to pick on you on your German English one more time, but when you said built, I was wondering, did you mean build as in bill me your service versus build the data center, right? Because what's interesting is this stuff, you will be billed like a utility model. You will not be doing your own cost optimization and driving down your own SLAs. So what's interesting is both of these things can be built and billed. You have to treat it like you're billing your clients, your customers. These guys need monitoring, measurement, and feedback. Now, let's compare. I think this has been on before. Not quite as colourful, a bit blackened out. But fundamentally, reliability versus agility, flexibility. But leverage mode 1 to mode 2 and take the improvements of mode 2 to feed back to mode 1. If you get a new refinement process, if you get some operational data that's part of an operational data store, why not feed it back to your back-end transaction systems? That's part of the process of learning. So really, being dynamic and agile is making IT learn off its deployment. DevOps will help you do that. I think the other thing to point out with this is culture becomes the biggest inhibitor. If you've had years of storage admins who've been managing the storage for backup and recovery process, and then suddenly the DBAs and the VM admins, the VMware admins, or whoever are trying to move the storage, then the problem is, who owns the storage administration? If you move to a load of hyper-converged infrastructure where the storage is part of the appliance, why is the storage now, again, part of the server domain being managed as part of the server? And the one thing I love about software-defined anything is that servers are now doing workloads that storage and switches used to do. So software-defined networks run software that make them a switch. Same for storage. Move the JBOD disks to the server's acting as a storage controller. So the general purpose server now is doing the software-defined functions in mode 2 deployments. New levels of storage, cheaper storage, more storage tiers. The amount of questions I get now, do I cache at the in-memory database layer or do I cache with SSDs? And the answer to that is simple, yes, both. Where do you want the speed? Where do you want the agility? Servers, modular, integrated infrastructure, integrated stacks, integrated servers themselves more modular in their dynamics. Networks with software switches building to the server. Networks that have not only improved in capacity, but still have one inhibitor. There is one thing the networking guys cannot design out of infrastructure, and that's latency. Right? Now, what's that problem? Not all workloads will fit the mode 1, mode 2 model well. So if you put a mode 1 app into a mode 2 deployment, I bet you they become highly latent. It takes a bit of time. So design the app over the consumption of the app, not just the back-end application. Operations have to be more DevOps, not ITIL leaders, ITIL processors. Software has to be smaller chunks of software that links together. So we're moving away from that sort of lasagna model of services back to the meatballs and spaghetti approach again. But they're not servers, the meatballs, they're services and applets. And data centers have to be flexible, containerized, or zoned. Containers here and zones are the physical containers, not the software ones we were just talking about. But what's interesting is the modularity now is now in the OS, it's in the VMs, it's in the containers, the software containers. It goes right back to the integrated infrastructure, the integrated storage, the integrated servers, to the data center containers. Modularity is end-to-end. What's a mode 1 application? What's the difference? It's not just operational technology like an ATM or a retail till. We've done that all the time. OT has been there before. But if you go to an ATM and it says you've got $3,500 in the account, can I take out 1,000? The problem is you might have in the last 4 hours gone to 7 accounts and it not update the records by batch. So it's limiting you to 500 in dynamic sense. It's been more agile and more dynamic, so it's overruling. The business rules are overruling what was the traditional mode 1 rules. Okay? So although they've got the money in the bank, we're not going to let him have more than 500 because he may have taken it out already. It may be some Nigerian banker that's got access of his account. Start with an island. How do you do this? Quite simple. Don't do it all as a big bang. Don't develop mode 2 and mode 1 separately, because then they become separated that you cannot bridge. You have to start small with a project that you know you can focus on and can bridge to. So, build isolated small deployments of mode 2 infrastructure that you are managing yourselves as part of the overall architecture and design. Also, bring in low maturity and innovation components. What's interesting is for Mode 2, you will have more test and development and pre-production environments. But build to a point where the enterprise can then take advantage of that, bringing the islands together, bridging the islands with common goals, common measurement. Don't expect full charge back of this Mode 2 stuff, but do show back. Show the business value back to the business if IT is part of that process. And let OT integrate with IT as well. Make it agile and collaborative. Bring in the finance guys and the CEOs. Bring in other CXOs because those guys have that operational budget. Bring in flexible funding, adaptive sourcing, going to external providers when and where you need them, but managing those relationships. If the business units go to the providers without IT's permission, then that just becomes another island that can't be bridged. So islands can become silos, so you have to manage the bridging of the islands. So you build these different Mode 2 systems and you build Mode 1 common infrastructure underneath to deploy on as well. Mode 1 is that standardized, modernized, repeatable, and the experimentation is on that Mode 2. Oops, sorry, thought there was a build. What's also important is different applications, different users will develop new stuff more quickly in a lot shorter lifespan. Here's another really important takeaway. Throw out your rubbish before you virtualize it if you need to. If you make the Mode 2 stuff work with Mode 1, if you move rubbish to the cloud or rubbish to virtualized environments, you just get V-rubbish, right? Or V-cloud. So what? So if you don't throw your rubbish out, the rubbish won't be collected, okay? So part of your consolidation process of going to Mode 1 is question, do you still need that new Mode 2 stuff? Mode 1's traditional emphasizing stability, safety, and accuracy, built on systems of record with systems of differentiation, but systems of innovation is all Mode 2. That's where you explore new business models, new agility, new speed. It's got less governance, and it is more disruptive in change. But that's where you manage the change and plan for the disruption. And if you can do that, you're reducing the cost of change. So, start before you're ready. Start when you can, not if you can, as soon as possible. Start with a project Mode 2 and Mode 1 by bifurcating the organization. Look at your IT, look at your OT, look at the opportunistic stuff you can work together. Focus on learning and experimentation first, but put the measurement in there as soon as possible to get that benefit back to the business. That will help you drive the OT budget. Ensure Mode 1 understands the ongoing importance and relevance. Just because they're Mode 1, they may be dull, but they are strategic. And Mode 2 is tactical. Okay? Take advantage of the tacticality of Mode 2. That's where change happens. Mode 2 must learn to integrate with Mode 1, not the other way around. Okay? It is Mode 2 that integrate and interfaces and make sure the measurement is with the business unit as well. Coalesce innovation and iterative deployment, look at adaptive sources, and look at I&O capabilities in the enterprise. Really look at putting the infrastructure, infrastructure is dull. DevOps means infrastructure doesn't matter. Unfortunately, if that infrastructure is wrong, then it does matter. okay? Make the right choices. Educate and coach the executive team, not just the CIO, not just the CEO, everybody who's got buy-in here with the operations. Test and validate the bimodal relevancy, the push from mode 1 and the pull from mode 2 for the business. And these will evolve over time. Allow things to change and be dynamic and move quickly. And on that, I'd like to say ciao. Thank you. There you go.